Welcome to another exciting episode of Revenge of the Average Joe's Sports Gambling Podcast, where we are fresh off of an 11-1 week in the NBA, specifically on your Denver Nuggets, and coming off a 7-2 week in our best bets of the week. If you've been following us blindly, you are positive money, and man, we are happy to continue that streak and teach you a little bit about gambling on the way. I am your host, Matt Dietz, joined, of course, as always, by the betting brothers, the gambling goats, Kyle and Ryan Poland. How are you today, gentlemen?
I am doing well. 3-0 week, like you said, 7-2 for the podcast. So it was a big week for us. So hopefully trying to recreate it, and hopefully just I feel like I'm like some guy who's 2 days sober with a AA chip. It's like it's been 2 days since my last parlay. Like I'm just trying to stay on the straight and narrow with these straight bets.
Yeah, I love that. Ever since you made that change, you've been dominant, Kyle. Ryan, what say you?
I don't know about dominant. I mean, he's still very catchable in the contest, but he has been having some good week. I'm happy when everybody eats. I don't want anybody to be left out. And, to be honest, I was getting left out there for a while. So I'm happy to be back at the table and feasting with my gambling buddies.
And we love having you here. Ryan, of course, is our underdog expert, and since he's given out more direct parlays, straight up odds, spread bets. Ryan, you've been cooking, man. You're back up now, down only 2.5 units. Kyle's up $500 on the year to bring the podcast up to just over even. And remember, these bets are done 3 days in advance, so we don't know about injuries, things coming out, and we are just printing money if you're with us live, especially on the NBA. We're going to get into that, talk to you about our NBA leans, but first, I want to review, guys, what we've been learning, especially in the NFL last week on our best bets. Kyle, as the current champ and the 3-0 week holder, how'd you do?
Yeah, I obviously the Panthers game was a roller coaster of emotions there. I had a tough time with the Commanders. They were dominating that game and then went for it at 4th and 1 at midfield, got stopped. Feel like it flipped the momentum of the game there. But they ended up coming back for a win for me. Panthers -4.5. They obviously should have won that game in regulation, then should have won it again in overtime, but luckily only lost by a field goal. So that was good for me. And then the 49ers were dominant. That line was baffling, and I was nervous that there was so much public money with me on the 49ers, but sometimes the square bets are still okay. And in that case, it was obviously the McCaffrey show. And the Rams, I don't think, are a good team. I think they're, to make a cross-sport analogy to a Nuggets opponent, they're kind of like a few years ago when the Spurs would make the playoffs with those veterans, and they still kind of had the culture to just like, hey, if you're a bad team, the Spurs are going to beat you. And if you're a good team, you're probably going to beat the Spurs. And I feel like that's kind of what the Rams are this year in the league. They still have enough pride and enough competence to beat bad teams, but they can't beat good teams. So that'll be a trend I'm looking to continue to take advantage of.
Yeah, I thought your call there on the Panthers, as somebody who's a fan of gambling and knowing that a friend had money on that game, boy, that was such a rush of emotions. They should have lost in regulation. They had to drive the whole field with about 1:30 left. Should have won at the end. Missed a field goal in overtime. What a roller coaster. Great week, though, for you, Kyle. 3-0, well-deserved. That's why we bet with units. You have some bad beats, you have some good beats, and if you're nailing your picks, eventually things will turn out the way they should. Ryan, strong week from you, man. Let's get into this. Where'd you learn?
Yeah, it was a good week. Had to really sweat out a Rodgers over interception bet until about the last play of the game, I think that was. But yeah, I like the fundamentals there. Latavius Murray anytime touchdown. I don't know if we'll ever be able to go back to this well, so I'm happy we did when we did. Chase Edmonds might be stealing those carries from here on out, but we could chat about that later, but he was getting a bunch of those red zone carries. So plus 190 win there. And my only non-plus bet of the week, I lost, which was a absolute battering of the over in the 49ers-Rams game when nobody seemed to be interested in playing any defense. So, yeah, I'm happy with. I've just mostly a trend bet on that under, so not too upset about it. We'll just keep it moving.
Yeah, I liked the bet there. I didn't expect the Rams to look that explosive with Christian McCaffrey in his second week. And I thought Sean McVay there at the end really helped you out. He just rested the starters, did not care the last 6 minutes of the game, packed it in, which really would have helped the under as well. Great week for you there, Ryan. Aaron Rodgers should have had multiple picks. It was just fate that he pulled through.
Yeah, he was trying to throw it to the other team for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think his season's done. He just doesn't know yet. In my neck of the woods, I went 2-1 as well. Nailed the things that I know, and I think that's been a big trend for me. Bet on the teams that I've watched consistently, and I've been a good Broncos fan this year. Broncos money line plus 120 paid off. The defense looked great, and the offense finally pulled through. They had 2 good drives. I get it. It's only 2. They went 3 for 3 in the red zone. We'll talk about them in depth. Also got them at the under. The game ended up 21-17, which puts it at 38, and I squeaked by under with 39.5. Last one was another positive odd there with the Giants at Seattle. Giants came back, tied the game 13-13. I thought it was looking pretty. Then it just got away from them. So I'm 0-4 officially on the Giants, 3 times betting against, now 1 time betting for. I'm just not going to touch them. I'd be having a great year if I hadn't touched anything that the Giants had been on. But overall, excited. 7-2 on the week. Please just jump on these. Watch us on Twitter if you're not following us at rotage.pod. We are always giving out Nuggets free picks. Sundays we're giving stuff out. Just a lot of fun to be with us on Sunday specifically. Gentlemen, let's get into this Broncos game. Of course, beating Jacksonville 21-17 in London. 3 touchdown drives like I alluded to. Covered the 1.5 positive and 39.5 under hit again. Want to start with what did we learn from this game?
I want to start
gambling wise, Ryan.
I want to start. I have to take a victory lap. I have never been more right about anything in my entire life than Russell Wilson, Mike McDaniel, and the Broncos coaching search. I really can't. I have to take the victory lap now that we're at the bye week. I think we all understand what we're looking at here. It might become a competent offense. Like, I think we could talk about that a little bit. Like, they looked a little bit better, and I think the coach is starting to see things in his role a little bit clearer. But this is a disaster, and I think the trade deadline indicated that, and I think they're starting to realize how bad it really is.
Yeah, was surprised to see Bradley Chubb moved at the deadline there. Of course, they got back a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick in exchange for Chubb and a fifth. I think it's the right trade. I'm glad they got it. But after a win, I'll give it to George Payton. He's not content just being a fringe playoff team, and he knows, hey, if I'm saving my job, I need to start recouping some of the assets on this terrible albatross of a trade I made for Russell Wilson. His salary this year isn't that bad. It's $2 million on the books. It's a $17 million salary cap hit. 2024, 2025, 2026, 3 years guaranteed. It's 50 to 60 million each season. So not looking forward to that. Kyle, reflections on the Broncos, things you want to get into?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that the thing that I took from this is that I think that this offense found a few things. I think that the Chase Edmonds thing is going to be very helpful as far as, like Ryan said, Latavius Murray, it's clear that they don't trust Melvin Gordon in the red zone to not fumble the ball, but it's also clear that Latavius Murray looks like he's running in mud anytime that he's in the open field or anywhere. Like, there's just no explosiveness there. And obviously that hurts. I was just looking at it, though. That's back stretch that we thought was going to be really brutal. Now you've got the Panthers. We're not super scared of them, right? The Ravens, that's definitely a loss. The Chiefs, that's a loss. But then we thought Cardinals and Rams was going to be hard, and those aren't looking as brutal. So I think down the back half, this is not where I make my case that the Broncos are going to make the playoffs or anything. This is where I make my case that you might see some inflated numbers down the stretch against the Broncos, and that with as good as this defense is, if it gets too much beyond 4.5 against some of those teams, I think you're going to be able to make good money because this defense is going to keep them in games. They're still going to be brutal to watch. We were looking forward to losing in a fun way, at least this year. I think I said on a podcast, and it's not fun at all to watch this offense. But I think that Dulcich has been huge for them. They obviously are using him in a great way. And I mentioned last week, and the trend continued in London, the Cortland Sutton under yards. I have no idea what's going on there, but it is all Judy and Dulcich right now. Sutton, it's not even getting targeted that much. So I think that those would be the two things that I would take out of this, is that down the stretch, you might be able to get some good numbers to have some covers from this team.
I think they could be a cover machine. I completely agree with that. And those unders, you can't make that number low enough right now. The offense still, like, they might look competent, but they're still going to kick a bunch of field goals. Like, the red zone is still terrible. They're not good. Like, the weapons that they have are, I think, pretty good, but they're not useful for the system and the quarterback that we're using. And so if they can figure out some ways to get those people, I think they're still going to have to score explosive touchdowns. They're not going to be a grind you down and then score, in a 6-minute drive. They might kick a field goal after 6 minutes, but I don't trust them at all once they get it within the 25. So I think you're right that they could see some inflation there because nobody's going to watch this team. It's ugly.
Yeah, just wanted to call out Kyle. You said Sutton's production has been down. Last 2 games, he has 13 targets for 4 catches total. So if you were banging the unders on those like you recommended, you're printing money.
Yeah, I was curious before we move on. Obviously, Broncos on a bye this week, and next week they have the Titans. We'll see how Tannehill, how his health is. Obviously, the Titans won the most hideous game in the world, where they just ran it down the Texans' throat, and I think they completed like 2 passes with Malik Willis. But let's assume that Tannehill plays. What do you guys think that line gets set at? Obviously, it's in Tennessee.
I'm definitely doing Broncos underdog. I wouldn't quite go a touchdown, and depending on health and how we look with Chase Edmonds, I think this could be a -6.5 game for Tennessee. 3.5 without that home field advantage, +3 gets them up to 6.5.
I really like the Broncos in that kind of area. The Titans as a team still suck. They are not good. And so I hope that you're really right. I was going to have it at like 4.5. Ryan, where would you have it?
They are really good at making games ugly. I don't think Vegas would let that line get above that Vegas zone, the 4 to 4.5 in that zone that caused. If it got up to 6, I don't know. I would be worried about this game too because Vrabel is a hell of a coach, and that team is going to be ready to go. The Broncos coming off a bye should be better and a little healthier, but I don't know. It's tough, I think.
Yeah, just this in from FanDuel and DraftKings, our partners. Thank you, guys. Broncos are +1.5 and +2 in the early line. Wouldn't touch that yet, but I am surprised.
I mean, if you don't know about Tannehill's ankle yet, like if you're playing as this Broncos defense with Malik Willis, that's a nightmare. And to Ryan's point, you can't make the under low enough if it's Malik Willis versus Russell Wilson. Yeah. There might be 10 points scored in the whole game.
Let me see if they have over-under listed here. But total?
I mean, that Malik Willis, like this game this weekend will determine a lot of what this line looks like too. They're not going to. They're not.
So if you like Tennessee, I would say get it now. Usually, what happens with Vegas, just give people insight, is this line will stay up until the games kick off. Then they take it down for a while because they don't want to get hit and have to be managing all of these in-game injuries and all that stuff. They'll take it down until the Tennessee game is done, and then it'll go back up.
Do not bet this game. If you're betting this look-ahead line for the Denver-Tennessee game in week whatever this will be, 10, like you have a problem. Don't bet this.
I'm just saying the side. I think it'll only go up. Is my point. I think it'll only go a little higher.
I will say over-under. It's 40 right now. Feel like that's pretty generous.
I mean, it's hard to set. If you look at all these over-unders over the year, it's hard for bookmakers to go under 40. Like, I remember, I think we talked about it on the podcast last year during the March Madness games, but sometimes you can't set those unders low enough because the goal is to get even action. It's not to It's not to
predict it.
predict the line. It's to get that even action. And if you're putting the line at 38.5, which it might actually deserve to be, nobody's betting that under. Like,
well, if it was 40 for every Broncos game, they would have hit in all but one game versus the Raiders that had garbage time touchdowns. And, of course, the pick fumble 6.
Yeah. I mean, I do think there's value on that under. But if Tennessee looks good or Tannehill plays, that number will probably go up. So
yeah,
I don't know that you're getting any value there either.
Fair. Well, I think we can get more into like the Dulcich, Judy, Sutton over-unders as we get closer to that game. Obviously, nothing's posted. Anything else we want to talk about on the Broncos before we jump into our bread and butter, the Denver Nuggets?
Nothing.
I wish Mike McDaniels was our coach.
I do too. Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's average separation is about 5-6 yards, which part of that is he's really fast, but also part of that is he is getting schemed so wide open.
There's a possibility that he's going to break Calvin Johnson's single season receiving record. And he has Tua as his quarterback and hasn't even had Tua for 2 of those games. So I think there's Mike McDaniel is good at his job.
That's unreal. I didn't know he was on pace to do that.
He's going to have the first 2,000-yard season in the NFL if he stays on pace.
He does have 17 games. Is he still on pace without the 17th?
It would be close. Yeah, which would be amazing. I mean, if he breaks I want him to break it in 16. I mean, he's kind of I have complicated personal feelings, obviously, as we all do, but it would be pretty cool.
Well, we will jump in now to the Denver Nuggets, our local team. Want to spend some extra time here because the podcast has just been crushing the Nuggets, specifically on live bets. They're 5-3 this season, currently undefeated at home with a couple road losses. And things that we have really crushed on, I want to kind of review for our friends, the podcast listeners. We don't charge for this stuff. We're not paying you for picks. We're just here to tell you what to bet and what to look for. If you're a unit bettor, these should crush over time. Things that I've noticed and really capitalized on, terrible third quarters. It's just been awful for the Nuggets. So if you like to fade your home team, feel better if they do good, that one's been just undeniable, especially against the Thunder. Kyle, anything you've been onto, or Ryan?
I would just say that the Jokic points, we talked about it earlier, but there's been a lot of games where he just doesn't shoot, and he's very comfortable getting everyone else involved, and you can tell he really likes this team, and he trusts them with the ball, and I think he is settling his way right into the season. Obviously, we were up by 14, and he attempted 2 shots in the first half versus Oklahoma City. So I would say that Jokic under points and over assists have been a pretty good play, especially against teams that are going to hard double, which I think San Antonio might be one of them that I don't think they're leaving a portal on that island.
Yeah, I love that take. And something else I wanted to touch on with those Jokic over assists, Ryan brought this up on the hard doubles versus Oklahoma City. Anytime you see him with a team that you think he's going to score 10 assists on, I would also put a little bit on the triple-double. Anytime he's had 10 assists, he's also gotten 10 rebounds. And I think, if you don't have someone to play him on defense who's big enough just to play him one-on-one, Jokic is going to destroy the boards. Love that play for him.
One big thing I've been looking at in terms of the rebounding thing is since they've been staggering Porter and Jokic more in those minutes, Porter used to steal some of those rebounds from Jokic, and he's not stealing them anymore. So that I think that stagger is going to be important to watch in terms of just the team success, but it also helps some of those betting numbers as well.
Jokic now with 4 triple-doubles on the season, and we've played 8. So every single time you've seen odds there, plus 270, plus 300. A really great value right now if you think Jokic has a chance to get 10 assists. Other things I want to call out, live betting the spread for the Nuggets. They've been favored in so many games this year that they have eventually gotten plus odds on. Big comebacks versus multiple teams, big blow-ups versus teams where they're up by double digits. Last night against the Thunder is a perfect example. Up by 15 points in the second quarter, and then they give it all away in the third quarter and get down there. So not betting the pregame live, the pregame spread, not doing a pregame money line. That's been helpful for me. This week, we've got the Nuggets hosting San Antonio on Saturday. They're minus 6.5. Ryan, I wanted to get your thoughts and play a little bit of Guess the Spread. Monday at San Antonio. Any thoughts on what that spread will be?
Well, it's probably heavily dependent on what happens tomorrow, but I would say if we win and we cover, it'll be probably 5.5, 4.5. If we don't win, it'll probably be, who knows what it'll be. And the other thing to consider with this team is just the injury report. They've had some super late scratches, which is frustrating as a bettor when you're trying to get money down on the game. So I think that's something to consider with the live bets too.
Yeah, and especially against the San Antonio team, which I feel can be so hot and cold shooting from three. I'm not going to touch that pregame line just because I know if they come out and are dominant first quarter on 3-pointers, you're going to get an opportunity to get huge plus money on the Nuggets or otherwise.
I think you also have to think about this. This is normally a spot where you would take a San Antonio. You'd say, oh, this is a well-coached Popovich team. They just got embarrassed by the Raptors. They almost lost by 40. They gave up 136 points their last time out. But I think all this Primo stuff is really distracting to them. And I think that, I think Pop is also feels like his legacy and part of his stuff is on the line. So I think he's probably pretty distracted as well. And so I think that this is a spot where I agree with you with the Nuggets. Just don't take pregame stuff. The only other thing I wanted to call out for pregame stuff, especially in this game, is I would take Porter over threes. I think it's been at about 2.5 for pregame with that stuff.
The line is moved
that
to
where
like
you've been seeing it,
minus
Ryan?
120 though on the over there. It's hard.
And I think
it's just hard for me.
I mean, he looks very good, and he's getting some of those pull-up and transition ones.
You saw that interview with him at practice when they asked him about shooting 50%, and he's like, I just don't think that that's unrealistic. And you're like, well,
yeah,
I hope that's true because we will win an NBA
he is
championship if you shoot 50% from three. So
yeah, and especially if Gordon is over his slow start. Obviously, it's just one game, but he looked good from three versus the Thunder as well. I think that really puts teams in an even more difficult spot where KCP's been shooting well. Obviously, Murray.
The Gordon stuff is so fascinating to me because when he is just bodying people and putting them underneath the basket, like, of course he's going to be open for three. Like, he is such a force when he truly gets aggressive. And that game was fun to watch yesterday.
Yeah, he was very confident. He's also, I think he's probably mentally, I would say he's our most, him and Bones, I guess, would probably be the two that are contributors. But like when he gets in a rhythm, you just see it. Like he's taking like step back threes in transition, and you're just like, you're feeling yourself right now.
You did,
and then there's some games where he feels down about himself, and you can tell it, and he just doesn't. You know what I mean? Doesn't feel confident, and even when he's taking open threes, you can see it in the way that he hesitates and gets himself set. That you're just like, oh, you're thinking about these a lot right now, and you feel bad that you're missing him because he's a really smart guy, and he's, I think, a really good teammate. But yeah, I just wanted to call out. I agree with Ryan. The minus 120, you don't love it, but as long as it stays under 3 threes a game for Porter, I do love that.
Yeah, I would just throw Jamal Murray in that. Can get microwave and brings the energy of the team. Like Jokic, even when he's cooking, I agree, he doesn't necessarily bring everybody to that level, but it's just that explosiveness when they start scoring is different than what Jokic is doing.
Yep.
Yeah, they lose that game without Jamal last night. And I love seeing Porter featured now when he's out on the court and Jokic is sitting. But having Jamal come back just to control the game, it's everything you saw in the bubble, and he brought it back for a game. Can't wait to see more. All right, well, I think we've done a nice cover of this Denver Nuggets team. Join us on Twitter and then soon to be on Discord for some live Nuggets betting. We do have season tickets, so we're there live every game and would love to share, just the knowledge and insight from the live arena with you, our adoring fans. Quick check-in on Upset of the Week. I only have one team. Don't love it after hearing your breakdown of them, Kyle. Any thoughts on Rams plus 130 at Tampa Bay?
I don't hate it. It feels like this is the year from hell for Tampa Bay, but it also feels like if they're going to make a stand, this is going to be it. But just remember, the interior of the line for the Bucs is destroyed, and remember that Aaron Donald still plays for the Rams. So I think Tom is going to be running for his life a lot. Also, Tom just looks absolutely terrible out there. They can't run the ball. And then their defense is starting to get really banged up again in the secondary, and that was their strength, was that, they were going to kind of try to get the Peyton Manning ring, right? Like hey, we're going to drag you across, and you're smart, so you just won't do dumb things that put us in bad spots. And this defense is getting really, really hurt. So I don't hate that at plus 130. It's not in one of my best bets, but I don't hate that. The other one that I just would throw out to the people, it's becoming a little too public for my taste, but the Commanders against the Vikings. The Vikings are very similar to the Giants. Their luck is off the charts. They are a pretty fraudulent team. And then once again, obviously the line for Washington is unbelievable, and they can get a lot of pressure. And so this is one that early in the week, when it was at 3.5, a lot of sharps jumped on this. And so obviously, remember the age-old rule that if you're going to put something on an underdog against the spread, you probably want to put a little taste on the money line. So like I said, wasn't in one of my best bets, but I definitely considered it after they've been the last 2 weeks. The Commanders have been very kind to me as they covered versus Packers, and also last week won outright for me versus Indy.
Yeah, one outright against the Packers too.
Yep.
Yeah, love it. Any thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams do appear in my best bets, so they not on the money line, but I don't hate it either. I kind of just think Tampa Bay will win this game, but they are devastated by injury, and I think something I was listening to compared this to a corpse fighting another corpse, so that's sort of what it feels like. But and Kyle, I don't hate that Commanders thing either. The Vikings are one of those teams for me that I always fade whenever they're good, and I just can't. I have no read on what they are or aren't. I don't know what is Dalvin Cook the best running back in the NFL? Is Kirk Cousins a top 10 quarterback? What am I supposed to believe? So I don't hate that either. The underdog board is tough this week. Nothing really stands out to me, but those are two that would have been my top two probably. So don't hate either.
Well, look forward to cashing in on some of those underdog madness bets. Love the energy I put into that. Let's get into our favorite segment, however. Ryan, you just broke this down. Your best bets of the week, which you have just been a tear on. 9-3 the last several weeks? Oh, yeah. Not even going to go back and double check my math. Ryan, you teased this one. Rams +9. Who else do you have there in your best bets?
Yeah, so I like you mentioned there, I did a little 6-point teaser. Rams up to 9, and then the Seahawks up to 8. I think these are both probably live underdogs here. So just going to get through both those key numbers and, just fundamentals here. I'm also going to take the Tennessee Kansas City under 45.5. We talked a little bit about it when we were talking about the Broncos game, but the Tennessee is really good at making these things ugly, and I believe that they will do that. And I also think that the Kansas City will probably score in this game, but I don't believe that Tennessee's offense is going to be able to keep up. So even if they get to 30 points, I'm not sure Tennessee can put up 10. So I feel pretty good about that under there. 45.5 is the number. I don't even know if I mentioned that. And I'm just going to make a quick little last minute change here. I was going to go back to the well on my DU hockey Friday night -1.5 bet, but I didn't love it. They need to win this game, but it's a big conference matchup, so I'm just going to leave it alone. And I found something on that Buccaneers note. I'm going to do a little same game parlay here with that Bucks Rams game. I'm going to bring in the Brady interceptions. So he just has to throw a pick here. I think we mentioned this. They're not healthy, so I can anticipate him heaving one to the other team. I'm also just going to take Cooper Kupp over 69.5 nice receiving yards. He's been tearing it up, basically doing exactly what he's been doing for the last 3 seasons. And that together is plus 170. So getting a little bit of value there. And I'm going to stick with that.
I love that last parlay there, Ryan. Outstanding.
Yeah, I like all your bets. I have an under in my best bets, but I looked hard at that Tennessee Kansas City one as well. I think Kansas City, while their offense is very efficient, they're also much less explosive. And so I agree with you that I think they'll win this game, but I think they'll grind it down. And I don't think Tennessee is going to score many points here at all. I think Tennessee has no wide receivers, and people have forgotten that because they've played some bad teams. But yeah, I think that 45.5, and I think this is a trend that we might be able to exploit going forward with the Bills and the Chiefs. Is that obviously teams are just going to be trying to keep everything in front of them to keep from getting blown off of the field by these teams, and then also that you can't make the over-under too low because of how explosive those teams are. But if the other team's only going to contribute 10 points, right? Like Ryan can win this 35-10. Like he'll have to sweat it, but he wins still, right? And I don't think that the Titans are going to let them drop 42 on us. I think this is a good one. And this was my last cut on the cutting room floor. So I like that one a lot. And that teaser, as well, is a great one, giving yourself all those backdoor outs.
Kyle, you want to bring us home, or not bring us home, but do you want to talk us through your bets?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I'm going to college. This is, as you know, we on the podcast, we don't often wade into these college waters, but this one's too tasty. It's really hard to pass up on here. We've got Georgia home versus Tennessee. This is a Georgia team that everyone had as a consensus number one coming into the season. They've just kind of been on autopilot since they beat the unholy hell out of an Oregon team that, by the way, has looked just fine since then. The Oregon team has put up some really good victories. So I think Georgia is unbelievable here, and I think -8 at home versus Tennessee. I think they feel disrespected. The fact that Tennessee is number one, they're listed as number 3. I think the fact that this is at home in the SEC, those fans are going to be rabid. Give me Georgia. -8 at home versus Tennessee. I'm a little bit worried about a backdoor cover, but it's very similar to kind of what Ryan alluded to when he made his DU hockey bet, where he said, a lot of times teams pull goalies, teams are aggressive. And I think coaches are less able to adjust in college. Like they kind of just have one game plan. Like you saw Oregon didn't have a counter punch or like, oh, we're going to try this now that this isn't working against these Georgia athletes. I think it's the same thing here. And I also think that kids are very likely to get very down on themselves if you're Tennessee and all of a sudden it's, 24-3 at halftime. So I don't love having the backdoor ability on a 14-point game, but I think this is a 21-point game, so I like the value I'm getting there. Then I'm going over in the Packers and Lions. I know what everyone's saying. Packers offense didn't look that good, right? I think they figured some things out. They looked better against the Bills. And this is my favorite, or one of my favorite trends, is the Lions at home. So the Lions put up 35 points on the Eagles at home, 36 on the Commanders. They dropped 45 against the Seahawks. They then dropped last week 27. Also, the Lions defense is 32nd in DVOA, and they are terrible. So Goff can put up points at home inside the dome. So I really, really like this one. I almost put the Dolphins-Lions over in last week, and they were almost there by halftime. So I think this is another one where this is going to be a shootout and going to be fun. And I don't trust Aaron Rodgers enough to put the Packers in there, but I do trust him enough that these guys are going to put up points. And Rodgers has been close on some explosive plays against better defenses than this, and I think they get home this week with some pretty explosive plays here. And I also think that the Packers defense, short week kind of with a Sunday night game, isn't quite what we thought it was, and the Lions can put up points on anyone at home. And then my last one, I've got under 47 Bills and Jets. So I talked about this trend earlier. The Jets, obviously, Zach Wilson looked embarrassing in the second half against the Patriots there. I don't see any reason to see them scoring. They are now starting a wide receiver who at the beginning of the season didn't want to be there. They have to play him because another wide receiver doesn't want to be there. They lost Bryce Hall, who was obviously their most explosive player here. And then I also think that the Bills team is a team that this is a letdown spot for them, and I think this is a coast spot for them. So I could see this being a pretty easy, like 28 to 6 or something like that game, where it's never in question, but there's no reason at this point in the season for a Bills team that's secretly kind of banged up on defense to take any risks here or to try to make any waves. I think they are we are a Super Bowl team. We're trying to win and get out healthy is their goal in every game. So I don't see them trying to run up the score or something like that would hurt me down the stretch. So those are my three there. What say you guys?
Well, since you're asking, I did think about fading you on the over Packers-Lions, that game there. Lions last two games, previous to this week, they put up like 6 and 9 points respectively. But I just hate betting on two bad teams, especially knowing Aaron Rodgers, right? We've talked about this. Don't bet against friends. Don't let friends bet against great quarterbacks. I don't want to bet against Rodgers. You shouldn't let me bet against Mahomes. So I'm not fading you there as much as I wanted to. That one makes me most scared. Love the Georgia pick. And I think the under 47 Bills-Jets weather up in the Northeast, I think could always help limit the score there. Ryan?
No, I think I like the over. I worry a little bit about the health of. I haven't seen an update on the wide receivers for Green Bay, but that room was pretty banged up. I'm assuming I know Lazard isn't going to play, but or is that right? I can't remember. One of them is going to play, and it seemed like one of them was going to. But I like it there. I just don't think the Lions have enough to contain anybody. So I think no matter what, you're looking at some value there. I also think I hope you're wrong about the Georgia-Tennessee game. I'll probably be cheering for Tennessee in that game just because I don't really care. But I guess I'll root for your bet to win now. But I can see Georgia absolutely wiping the floor with Tennessee. So I as much as I don't want that to happen. The under 47, anytime I'm betting an under on a Bills game, I get a little nervous because they are very good at football, but I like the fundamentals of the bet. So I don't. I think you got 3 winners there.
Well, that would put us at 6-0 so far. We'll see where I can go from there. I have lost a lot of money on college football. I'm going to start by saying that. But this year on the Colorado Buffaloes, I am undefeated. And they're hosting the Oregon Ducks. And I do recall Ryan does owe me a bet on the Colorado Buffaloes. He took a team they were playing at plus or minus 14.5. Buffs won outright. So whenever he wants to pay up on a couple bets that he's missed on, I am waiting and excited. That being said, Oregon -7 first half at Colorado. If you can take a second mortgage out on your home, do it. If you can sell your car, do it. If you have Dogecoin that's worth $34 to $40 after all this time, sell it. Put it on Oregon -7.5 at Colorado. I famously recall Kyle last season saying, bet the farm, bet everything. And that bet proceeded to lose. Well, this one's going to win. I think I'd like this all the way up to 10. Oregon's going to smash Colorado early. Don't know if they'll cover 31.5. But first half bet at -19 I looked at, and -7.5 They can't tackle anyone. I've been following this team all year.
Oh, so it's not half, it's quarter.
It's quarter.
Okay, I was like, there's no way. 7.5 and a 31.5 point spread.
Yeah.
Okay.
First quarter. We could not tackle a player from Arizona State. They would run it up the gut, and then it would take 7 people 25 yards to take him down.
Yeah.
Next one, I'm actually nervous about this line because it is so low, and I have these teams graded so differently. Baltimore -2.5 at New Orleans in prime time. And if I could find it, it's not listed at the time of recording. I would also be interested in parlaying Lamar Jackson rush yards with this. He doesn't have a lot of receivers. If they're going to win this game, I think Lamar has a great running day. So when I can do that live, I'll post it on Twitter. But for the purposes of the podcast, just Baltimore -2.5. For my final bet here, I was choosing between 3. Kyle, I'm not going to fade you on air and do the under on the
you do what
Packers
your heart
versus Lions, just
you
because you talked through, and I think you really convinced me. Lions do have the opportunity to score versus anybody. Aaron Rodgers is looking a little better. I am nervous that they'll rely too heavily on the run game. They'll get up 10-17 early, and they'll just sit on that lead. But hopefully you are correct. The other one I was thinking about was the Carolina Panthers +270 at the Bengals. I've seen this Bengals team versus a good pass rush. In the Cowboys week 2, Joe Burrow just does not look good. And 270, I don't think those odds are respective of really the percentages in that game. I think there's more than a 30% chance that Carolina could win it, maybe 45, 50-50. But I want to win. So I'm going to go with the Air Force Falcons at Army. Over-under is 40.5, and I'm taking the under. If you want to do a little bit of a parlay, you could also take Falcons -7. They're significantly better than the Army football team, but those games are notoriously close. It's a rivalry game, so go under there. Safe play. And looking forward to a 7-2 or maybe even a 9-0 week this week. Let's just crush it, gentlemen.
I like it.
Well, if you've stuck with us, please take the time to rate us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you next week where we'll break down the Denver Nuggets, talk about our 15-1 streak that we are on. And nice.
Nice.
Nice.